Take it easy and solve the school lunch problem with SPAM. S-P-A-M.
こんにちは、タイガークローラジオ。You are listening now. Back J.
You are listening to Tiger Claw Radio. Number one in vintage computer and video game entertainment. And now your host, Critical Failure.
What is going on, everybody? You're listening to Tiger Claw Radio. This is Critical Failure, and we were recording this week in oppressive heat. That's right, I can barely stand it. If you can hear in the background, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 fans going at once, not to mention my PC fan is loud as heck. So I'm sure it's bleeding through in the audio, so just bear with me. We're going to have a good time anyway. This week, we've got all kinds of stuff, such as the Retron 77. The Steam summer sales have come front and center, and acquisitions have been made. We've got some news about Friday the 13th. And we got all kinds of good stuff. So we're gonna kick things off with a track from Animal Styles. It's from the album Trenchbent. Now I've played this album many times here on TCR. It's an 8-bit People's release, and it only has 5 tracks on it. But I think this is the best example of an album built off of Sega Genesis hardware, or built off of the Sega Genesis sound chip, however they made that happen. Excellent example. It's still available for free. If you head over to 8-bit People's, you can find it. Get yourself a copy. You won't regret it. You guys are listening to Tiger Claw Radio. first Vancast this week, we got Friday the 13th. Is it dead? What's going on with it? We've got the Retron 77, a new piece of hardware to look forward to. And we've got the first batch of summer sale acquisitions over at Steam. All right, stick around. All right, boys and girls, it's Monday. It's time for the Vancast. And I am just pulling out of the grocery store, getting ready to go to work. Oh, what a nice day. The sun's out, not a cloud in the sky. Rained all weekend, but now I'll have to be at work. It's going to be gorgeous outside. So typically when I do these, there's usually maybe one bullet point I want to go over, and the rest is just sort of rambly. But I have a pretty concise list of things that have happened over the past weekend. First and foremost, let's talk about Friday the 13th. The game. That's a game that I enjoyed. I wanted to get it when it came out. I had to sit on it for a while. Finally pulled the trigger after, 6 months or so. And I loved it. It was a great game. It's been out for about a year. And there was an announcement that there's going to be no more development for Friday the 13th, which is very sad. It was a great game. It's still, the servers are still up. It's not dead. You can get in and play it, but they announced there's not going to be any new content at all. No new characters, no new JSONs, no new maps. I don't have the article in front of me, but the developer said something like, not a single rock or tree will be added, which was, it was sad, but it was even stranger, I think, that was announced. It's like, with these games, it just happens, and you end up waiting for an update that never comes. I guess I should say, at least they had the decency to, tell us. Hang on a second. I got a runaway fruit here. Alright, let's get my grocery bag in the back. Hopefully it won't fall over. Oh, boy. Alright, hang on. Oh, I know this is terrible. Terrible podcasting. So that's Friday the 13th. Now, what I found interesting was after this announcement, the price didn't drop. It's still $40 regular price, which is a lot. I mean, it's a lot for a game. It is. It's even more for a game that is no longer up and coming, right? Meanwhile, now that we know Friday the 13th is all done, Dead by Daylight is still getting new updates. That had new DLC over the weekend as well, which is pretty cool, because that game's a bit older. And I just went through reformatting my hard drive and reinstalling Windows and starting from scratch because I wanted to play Friday the 13th. That was the game that got me to go through all that mess. So it's a little frustrating to see after all that. I mean, the game is what it is. The player base is waning. It's still there. You can still get on and start a game, but it takes longer now than it used to. And I haven't tried to play a game in off hours, like in the middle of the night or something. I imagine it would be impossible. But, I'm glad I got to play it while it was new and up and coming, and I got to experience brand new updates. And thank goodness they built an offline mode that really works with some AI players. So if those master servers do shut down, at least you can still play the game. And that's Friday the 13th. Next thing I want to talk about is something called the Retron 77. You guys know these Retron clone machines of old Nintendo consoles. Well, there's one for the Atari. They made a clone Atari system, and man, it looks gorgeous. It really does. It's like half the size of an Atari, but it still has the wood grain on it, and the old familiar cartridge slot of those big cassette tape sized, it's like the 8-track of video games, Atari cartridges. So it's cool to see, and I gotta say the timing is great to see something like that come out now while the Atari box, the Atari VCS, whatever it is in the news over and over again. People are really upset at this Atari VCS thing because they released a demo of it showing like a Tempest game, Tempest 3000, whatever it's called. And it turned out that they didn't license the game. They just downloaded it and ran it on Wine. And the developer's like, hey man, our game isn't on your console. So a lot of people were making videos saying that the console was faked and stuff like that, which to me seems really irresponsible, because it doesn't mean it's faked. All it means is they licensed, they demoed a game in an emulator that was unlicensed. It doesn't mean there's no console, which is very strange. But I think it was people who were waiting for the VCS to fail, going, "Ha! Gotcha! See?" When the reality of it is, I mean, we're still where we started. We really don't know anything about it. That's what I thought when the news first broke. Now they're saying it's worse than that. We're looking at potential fraudulent activity, but I don't know a whole lot of the details. I just know that this Atari VCS thing, I mean, we all kind of thought it was going to be, not what it wanted to be. But now it's looking really bad for the Atari VCS. Which is why, oh my gosh, Retron 77. Get yourself a Retron 77 when it comes out and play those Atari games, man. Because that's another thing. What they're doing with this Atari console, it seems like anyone could do the same thing, rebuild the same console for the ground up and charge $100 less. I mean, if they're building an open console, an open ecosystem, and they don't have any games for it, how does that make it different from, like, I don't know, say like a set-top box single board computer, right? As a matter of fact, I looked that up recently. You can get a set-top box single board computer that'll run some halfway decent games for about $150, right? And it might not be as powerful as it might not even be as powerful as the VCS, but hey, at least it'll play games, right? That's oh man, that's a hard truth. That's a hard truth about a console that I really wanted to be real. Then we come to the Cartridge Club, which I wanted to talk about a little bit. The Cartridge Club podcast is getting ready to change hands. It looks like P1 and P2 are stepping down and handing the reins over to the Musty Hobbit from Second Breakfast. So, I'm glad that the podcast is going to continue and the community is going to continue. I regret never making it onto that show. There was talks for a while about me making an appearance, probably like last year or something like that. And I just got too busy and I couldn't make it, and then I kind of drifted off and I never followed up with them, so I didn't make it happen. And now the show's going to end, or it's going to change hands rather, which is kind of sad, but at the same time I'm glad it's changing hands instead of ending. And Musty Habit's a cool dude. I think he'll pilot the ship nicely. So once that changeover is made, we'll have to make sure and make it a good episode, and everybody tune in and listen, so that we can lend our support to old friends of Tiger Claw Radio. All right, moving right along. Steam sales are at the end of their first week. I made some acquisitions. First week? Yeah, first week. They run until July 5th. So we got, I think, about 2 more weeks, which is pretty cool. That's a lot of time. So I wanted to go over what I picked up at this point. I picked up Anno 2070, which I tried this morning for the first time, and that's a pretty sweet game. I liked the Anno games, but I really only played the first one. I picked up like the first 4 games in the series from the GOG sales, but I only really played the first one. And I liked it, but it was aged. I picked it up to run on a laptop that didn't really have any power behind it. And then playing this game, one of the modern games, this morning, it was really like, whoa, man, this is pretty sweet. The graphics looked great. The atmosphere was, how would I describe it? The atmosphere was very larger than life. It felt a lot like Civilization 4. If you remember the title screen music of Civilization 4, just how large that game felt. Anno 2070 felt that way. Here's one weird way I could describe it. If Anno 2070 were a movie that was on VHS, it would be one of those 2-tape movies from the 60s that ran like 3+ hours and was filmed on location with like 6,000 extras. You ever seen those movies? Those like old really long movies from the 60s? That's the impression I get from Anno 2070. One of those just digitally remastered. It's like going and buying a Blu-ray copy of Shoes of the Fisherman or Lawrence of Arabia or something like that, which is a good thing. It's a good thing. And I'm not sure how exactly games reach that sort of feeling. I think it's the full orchestra behind the score, behind the soundtrack, which is a nice touch indeed. But I dug it. It's still Anno. That's another thing. It's still Anno. I can still recognize it from the original game. It's focused way more on the industry than it is on the city building. Although it is a city builder, you're doing you're building supply chains. You're building the mine that gets the materials. Then you build the factory that turns the materials into the goods. And you build the trade center, which trades the goods to the rest of the world. That's what Anno is. A lot of that. Which is pretty sweet. Pretty stark contrast to play one set in the future, when all these old games that I bought are set in like the distant past, in like the 1400s and 1600s and stuff. But it fit perfectly. It's weird how adaptable that theme seems to be. But I don't know. I guess it's just a city builder, and you're just laying down buildings, and it really doesn't matter how they draw the buildings to look, whether they make them futuristic buildings or whether they make them grass huts. It's really just about laying down buildings. Alright, so that's Anno 2070. I also picked up Call of Duty Black Ops. I pulled the trigger on that. Knowing that it was a silly game to buy, I did it anyway. And I played that a little bit. I played the Zombies mode, which was really fun. I have played all the way through Call of Duty Black Ops. I played through it on the PS3 several years back, and I forgot how much I enjoyed doing that. It was a good time. I played that. I really only got to try it, but it held up. I dug it. And another thing that's interesting was when I was deciding which Call of Duty game to buy, I was looking them up on the Steam statistics. I wanted to see what actually had a player base behind it. Because it's not as simple as, well, the newer games have the most players. Black Ops still had a lot of people playing it, which was, they all have a good amount of people playing it, but Black Ops, I think, had the most, several thousand, which was pretty sweet. Several thousand when compared to, say, World at War, which Call of Duty World at War, which had about like 300 people playing it. So yeah, it's I don't know how much you can take that comparison to the bank, because 300 people playing a game is still enough to jump into a game. But I was looking more towards longevity, right? I don't know. I just wanted it. I bought it. Now I got it. I got to play it a little bit. We'll check out more on that as it develops. I also bought Master of Orion 1 and 2, which I bought just so that I could have Master of Orion 1 again. Been on my wish list for a while. It went on sale. I picked it up. I got a game called Mighty Gunvolt, which is a side-scrolling action game akin to the... it's an indie game that's supposed to be like Mega Man. That's what it is. And I'm okay with that now, because after Mighty Number 9, Mega Man's intellectual property is up for grabs at this point. It's like if somebody rebuilt a Mario game from the ground up and then just like changed the color of the hat and shaved the mustache so that they couldn't be sued. The whole time I'd playing it, it would be fun, but I'd be like, dude, you're ripping off Mario. You're ripping off Mario. You know what I mean? I would still have that little grain of salt that would remind me that I'm playing like a corporate clone. That's not the case with Mega Man. I think that's an intellectual property which has been so abused when these indie games make Mega Man-like games and they end up being better than modern Mega Man games, I just have to shake my head. So that's what Gunvolt is, and I tried it this morning, and the graphics were awesome, and it played super smooth, and the artwork was great. Hitting all the marks. Good game. Good game that went for very cheap. I think it was like $2 on sale. I also got a game called Project Snowblind, which is a 2000 era first-person shooter. Haven't run that yet. Just an FPS that I got for less than $1. I'm sure it's going to be mediocre. I got Resident Evil 4. Been on my wish list for a while. I liked Resident Evil 4. I played it on the PS2 years ago. I picked it up again. We'll see how it goes. And then I bought the Sin Emergence games, which is yet another FPS. So lots of first-person Rudy Tooty point and shooty in this Steam sale for me. So that's it. That's really everything that's happened since the last TCR. My apologies to the patrons, because I had a lot of trouble getting last week's episode published and put up early. I had to struggle with getting the archive running, and generating the video file was that for YouTube was a bit more complicated than normal because I switched operating systems. But it's all sorted out now. It should be fine. As of this week, everything should be more or less back to normal. So yeah, and if I was back at home playing games, I'd probably play Anno 2070 a little bit more. Although, to be fair, last night when I was sitting with my wife and we had the TV on, I played Tropico 4, and that was also a very good game that I haven't played much. So I play one of those city builders. Saying those words, what it makes me think is, if that were really the case, I would just go home and I would fire up my computer or look at my games and spend 20 minutes deciding what to play. That's what I would really do. Alright, gang. We're about 17 minutes in? Ooh, this is another long one. Alright, I'm going to shoot you back to the studios where it's nice and comfortable. In the meantime, I'm going to go into the office and do my Monday at work. We're back safe and sound in Panzer Studios. You guys are listening to Tiger Claw Radio, so just a heads up, we have forums online. Head over to tigerclawtv.com. Click on the forum button. That'll take you to the Juice Bar, which is something that Sendu, formerly of Light Studios, formerly of Its Tail Time, he put this forum together, and it's going to be my forums, it's going to be the next round's forums, and it's going to be the forums for his new project whenever he gets that up and rolling. So thanks to Sendu for doing that, and in honor of the new forums, what is it we used to do on the forums, guys? Do you remember? We used to do with Doom Night. That was our big thing. So I'm hoping to scrape together a new Doom Night. I've got a topic over there going. I'm gonna be playing some Zandronum this weekend so that I can make sure that it's still a viable option, and we're gonna get together and play some Doom. So make sure you're signed up for those forums so you can be a part of that. This track's a classic from J. Arthur Keen's. It's from his album Computer Savvy, which is not his newest album. He's put out at least one since then, but it's called Spaniard, and it's a great song. Here's a guy who J. Arthur Keen's used to just put raw chiptunes. He would upload raw chiptunes to the 8-Bit Collective in like 2009, 2010. And as he would put out albums, each album was less and less chiptune and more just his music, and with actual instruments. But this album, I think, is right in the middle of that transition. The following album was virtually no chiptunes, and the album before this, Pample Mouse, was straight up chiptunes. But this is the glue right in the middle. So this is Spaniard off of Computer Savvy from J. Arthur Keen's. You're listening to Tiger Claw Radio. right, you guys know what it is. This is Tiger Claw Radio. Just want to take a minute to show some appreciation to our sponsors over at Patreon, the patrons. These are the guys that give their resources to make sure we come back every single week. And for that, I give them not as much as I wish I could give these guys more. But what I can give them is early access to the show. They get it as soon as it's done. And every once in a while, I try and get some sort of Patreon exclusive. I had a little 10-minute after party that I recorded and put up last week for the patrons. I've also got I'm going to be re-uploading my Spy vs. Spy video, which has been extinct for years. It's one of the original RetroWare TV run videos that's been it was a victim of the early copyright system, and it's been long removed from YouTube. So that's going to be up there for the patrons. Hopefully next week, but very soon. And I also read their names off in a hall of distinguished gentlemen, and they are Hemrock, James, Sendu, Tecmo Balls, Darabka, and the Cartridge Brothers. Thank you guys so much for giving of your resources. I hope you guys are feeling satisfied with the end product, because I'm doing everything I can to hold up my end of the bargain. Coming up in the Vancast, we've got, bear with me, we're looking at other things I'm after with the remainder of the sales. We've got a little bit about the juice bar. I mentioned that earlier, but a little bit more, and some other stuff. So hang with me. It sounds like I'm getting a message from the Gaming Beast. I'll check that out. In the meantime, you guys take a ride in the van right here on TCR. It's the Vancast for Tuesday morning. You know, these late days at work are such a mixed bag. Nobody likes to work late. But what I do is I'm getting out of bed at the same time. So consequently, on these late days, I have like a couple hours to myself to play games and work on videos and whatever it is I need to do. It's like a rare treat as a dad. So I got up this morning and I banged out that Sequest video that's up on my YouTube channel now. That footage has been sitting there for a while, so I finally got that edited together, which didn't take long. And then after that, I was like, all right, I got some time to play some video games. So clicking around, I looked at my Sega Saturn a bit, and I decided to pass on Need for Speed, and I wasn't awake enough for Myst. Myst is too smart, it's too cerebral a game to play at 5 in the morning when you're barely awake. So instead I played some Call of Duty Black Ops. And I gotta say, I felt a disturbance in the force. Went over to my closet and all the collars on my shirts had just popped by themselves. There was the bro vibe was so strong in my house playing Call of Duty. But I had forgotten, it's a fun game. Loaded up the multiplayer, went round and round a few times, got embarrassing statistics. So you don't have to worry about Call of Duty videos crowding my YouTube channel. It's just something I've been enjoying, doing for fun. Played a little Black Ops this morning, played a little World at War last night. So that's been good. Let's see. The forums. Let's talk a bit about the forums. I mentioned this in the past, but I wanted to bring it up again. The forums are alive and well on TigerClawTV.com again. That button up top that previously went to like a graveyard page for the forums, that goes to real forums now. What happened was Sendu started a forum called the Juice Bar, and he reached out to me and a couple other people and said, hey, let's just start a forum of our own that'll unify some of our websites. So the next round it goes there, and Kaiser is up on that site, and a bunch of at least one old It's Tail Time person, apart from Sendu, and it's pretty neat. So here's the thing: these old style forums, I was ready to let that format go for like a long time. I was like, well, I guess forums are dead. We don't really need them anymore. People, when they want to use a forum, they go to Reddit now, or they use Twitter, or they use Facebook. People aren't really using forums like they used to. But now, it seems like every time you post on Twitter or on Facebook, you have to be so careful because that stuff gets dredged up, and it becomes a record. And you have games like Overwatch, which are scraping your Twitter account to see if they can find anybody they deem as toxic, and then they'll ban you from the game for that. So it's now there's a reason to have our own little community that's moderated by us, where you can really come and say what you want, and it'll be okay. So that's pretty awesome. So props to Sendu for setting up the juice bar. You can head over to TigerClawTV.com, click the link on top that says forums. That'll take you there. And we are still in the middle of the Steam sales. They're marching right along. We're getting ready to. This is week 2, I guess, out of a 3-week sale. And I mentioned all the crazy stuff I bought so far, and there's still a couple things I'm after. If I can scrape any more money together, there's a couple of things I really want to get. Number one, I want to get GTA 5. I've never played GTA 5. I found a perfect condition copy for the Xbox 360, but I've never even put it in the machine because I wanted to play that game on the PC. I have it. I bought it anyway because it was $3. But I never played it because I want to play that game on the PC. And that's it's a little less than $20 right now. It's $19.80 or something like that. Just under $20. They just it's weird because it's typically $19.99. There you go. There's your $20 price tag. But they dropped it down below to an odd number. It's $19.73 or something weird like that. I don't know how that math came about, but whatever. I want to get a copy of GTA 5. Also, there's a shoot 'em up called Blue Revolver that I played at MagFest this past year. Top-down shooting game, a shmup, if you will, spiritual successor to the Dodonpachi series, and a very, very good game. So back at MagFest, there were these candy cabs, and there was one specific aisle that had a lot of shmups on candy cabs. That's where you could find a couple iterations of Dodonpachi. The sequel to Mushihime-sama was there, and some games I didn't recognize. There was also a dedicated cab that had Blue Revolver on it. But it was a special edition of the game made for MagFest, and when you looked at the title screen, it said that. There was a flashing text that said, "Hello MagFest," or something like that. It was pretty sweet, and a good game too. But what was weird was I played it one time, and I was oh, that's great, I'll come back to it later. And then I came back later, and some other game was on the cab, and apparently Blue Revolver had stopped working. And everybody was really digging it. It had people who really wanted to play it. But it stopped working, and that was the last time I played Blue Revolver. It's a $15 shmup, and it's on sale for $7.50. So that would be a cool one to get, because now it's July, and I last played that game in January, so it's been a while. So that's Blue Revolver and GTA 5, and then there was of course, there's a big list of small things that I'm not really going to go over. I like the Anno series. I've been playing Anno 2070. That's a great game. So there's another Anno game I don't have. The most recent one, 2205. I don't have that one. I've been really into city builder games lately. I'm looking around for the city builder game that's really going to stick with me. So there's a few good city builder games that I don't have yet. I don't have Caesar 4. I don't have there's expansion packs for City Skylines that I don't have. I'm kind of shopping around for my city builder. The last city builder I really took to and stuck with was SimCity 4. And that was a while ago. I guess that's not even true, because it's been like a month since I discovered the Anno series. So I dug into that first Anno game for a while. Anything else? There's a game called Avon Colony. That's just more city building stuff. Tropico 5 I don't have. And that's pretty much it. The Steam sales are taking a bite. And I've decided to focus on the Steam sales because, it's a limited time thing. And the Sega Saturn is going to be there as soon as I'm done. And I have Sega Saturn games coming in the mail. So as soon as I rip open those packages, my focus is going to be right back on the Saturn, which is why I don't necessarily feel bad about focusing a little bit on Steam games. I also think it's worth mentioning that this morning I had this moment where I was sitting at my desk and I was looking over at my shelf of consoles where the Sega Saturn sits, and just to the left of the Sega Saturn is where my Dreamcast is. And it kind of occurred to me that I've been really into the Sega Saturn, and I haven't touched my Dreamcast in I don't know, it's been a while. It's been like 6 months or more. And I thought, since my Saturn collection is building so very slowly, and I have a few decent Dreamcast games, it might be fun to get that up and running again. I need to get, I think one of the things that stopped me from playing Dreamcast is I made the decision that I wanted to get my VMUs up and running. At one point I bought batteries for my VMU so that I could use it again, but I didn't realize that the batteries all drained out if you left the VMU in the controller. Thanks Sendu for letting me know about that. But now that I know that, it's like a couple CR32s to get a VMU up and running again. That's not that expensive. I could order those, stick those in there, and do it a little bit more responsibly this time, and I'm up and away with a working VMU, because those things are awesome. I think the Dreamcast was a huge innovation for gaming. It's funny because like Nintendo has a lot of like really gimmicky consoles and stuff. Like when the Wii came out, the Wii is a staple now, but when it came out and people were showing off the controller, I was like, that's really gimmicky. And it took me a while to warm up to it. And I was like, okay, yeah. Then the Wii U came out and a big tablet controller, and I was like, that looks really gimmicky. And it kind of stayed that way because I never got the chance to use it. And I'm looking at the Switch and I'm like, that looks kind of gimmicky. But I know some people who I trust who are saying, nah, dude, the Switch is awesome. But when the Sega Dreamcast came out, with as much as it innovated, I never had that moment where I was like, this is really gimmicky and doesn't look like a gaming machine. It was always like something that looked like it would be worth my time. Which I think is a stark contrast to the way I look at Nintendo. Nintendo products seem gimmicky at first, but then I kind of warm up to them later in life. Even when I remember I was waiting tables when the DS came out, like the first DS. And at the time I was really poor, so I wasn't even considering getting something like that. At that time my video gaming took place on, I had a laptop that was like maybe equivalent to a Pentium 1 or maybe a Pentium 2. And it didn't have any sound card at all. I don't think it had access to the internet either. No, it did, but it didn't have. There was no broadband. I could dial in. Yeah. So I would play old MS-DOS games on that. Old MS-DOS games. The few CD-based computer games that I had. So I was playing a lot of Shadow Warrior. That's when I was playing ZZT. That's kind of an obscure DOS game, if you know what that is. And that's what my gaming was. And so people were talking about the DS. And I vividly remember this one guy going,
there's like two guys talking, and one guy was like, did it really have to have two screens? Did it really need two screens? Did it have to be touch screen? And I remember at the time thinking, yeah, that is kind of weird, isn't it? But now the DS is like super old, and we've had how many iterations of the DS? You know, DS Lite, DS XL, DS Farting Edition. And it seems like a staple now. I don't know. Same kind of pattern. That's just an observation about new technologies being adapted. Maybe it's not fair to put Sega above them, but it just seems like when the Dreamcast came out, the steps they took in technology seemed like more logical steps. All right, we got gaming consoles. Let's get one online. All right, we got memory cards. Let's make the memory card a small gaming system. Okay, maybe that's not very logical, but I don't know. I liked it. It's a good system. And if I was absolved of all responsibility right now, I'd go home and take a nap. But let's assume I took the nap and the nap was over with and I could play video games. What would I play? Probably a city builder of some kind. I played Call of Duty this morning because I didn't have a lot of time. I had a little time, but a city builder is a game that you need to sit down and play for like an hour plus. Whereas I jumped into Call of Duty knowing that, I could play this for 15 minutes, it'd be fine. Just do a round or two, that's all I need. But if I went home right now, it wouldn't be so much what game I play, just the fact that now I get to have a 2-3 hour session, and that's all I do. I think that would really be the shining moment for me, the real thing I would love more than anything else, regardless of what game I sat down with or not. Alright, so those are my notes, and that's the Vancast for Tuesday. I'll see you guys back in the studio. I hope I'm not making these too long. It seems like last week and this week, the Vancasts and the show in general have been very long, so I hope it hasn't been excessively so. At any rate, I'll see you back in the studio.
We are back. It's time for the fail bag, ladies and gentlemen. So this is a small show. It's just me. It's just you. Me and my pals, right? So let's take advantage of that. Anything you got to say, you can say it, and we can have a conversation. Now, this part of the show has been the best part of the show on many occasions. It's a chance where we can exchange ideas, and I think, consequently, a lot of really genuine stuff can come out that way. So the first thing I want to do is head over to YouTube. It's the first place I like to check. Go to YouTube and just go to the last episode, which was number 240, and see what people are saying. Desm101 writes, the Saturn has internal memory similar to the Sega CD. It's quite limited. Those are great stories about the kids playing Contra and Gradius. I bet they'll have fond memories of those classics with their pops. Playing those classics with their pops. I hope so, man. I didn't really play games with my folks. You know what's weird is I remember playing Magic the Gathering with my mom once. This was like, she was starting to get up there in age. It's long after my dad passed away. So I must have been like 16 years old. And I can't remember how old that would have made her. But she tried Magic the Gathering once. And I can't remember how it went down. But my brother and I used to play a lot. Which is funny, now we talk about Magic the Gathering. All of my Magic the Gathering cards I still have. And those things are like 20 years old now. So I think that might be worth digging them out and taking a look on camera. Because I'm not saying my Magic the Gathering collection is a ton of money, but I'm sure there are a couple of cards in there that would fetch a penny or two. At the very least, be neat to look at. Yeah, so we try and take video games. I try and take video games and make it something my kids and I can share together. But that can be a bitter pill to swallow. To hear them like have disinterest in games that I think are amazing. My kids are never going to like Wizardry. It's not going to happen. They're never going to like the Atari as much as I do. Although, to be fair, my son and I played Atari Combat a couple of times when he was much younger, and we had a good time. But he was so young at that point, he probably doesn't even remember. He's probably like, I don't know, 3 or 4. Yeah, so internal memory to the Sega Saturn. That's cool, man. The Sega Saturn is a complicated beast, and it has been a good way to play the Need for Speed, which is right now the most played Sega Saturn game I have. I'll tell you something else while we're on the subject of the Sega Saturn. My latest game for the Sega Saturn has arrived. Judging by the package size, it came in box this time. And what I'm going to do is I left it in the package. I haven't opened it yet. I'm going to open it as soon as the Steam summer sales are over. And I'm going to use it to re-jumpstart my interest in the Sega Saturn and in physical games. That way I can just enjoy the Steam sales right now. It's a big event for me, but I know it's not going to take me out of my Sega collection permanently. It's just for this week and next week. And then after that, it's right back to Sega Town. Because I'll tell you, it's not just the Sega Saturn I'm interested in. I also want to go back and get a few extra games for the Sega Master System, because that is still a very new game system for me. I've had it for, I don't know, I'd have to go back and look at the videos when they came out, but I'm going to estimate probably about 9 or 10 months I've had it. And there's a lot of inexpensive, attainable titles for the Master System that I would like to get. I want to get Outrun, I think, next. I would enjoy. And it occurs to me, I don't think Outrun ever came out for the Genesis, did it? The Genesis had like an Outrun 2015 kind of game, like a futuristic Outrun game, but straight up driving on the beach, right? In the convertible. I don't know if that ever made it to the Sega Genesis. But it made it to the Master System, apparently. So that's something I want to get my hands on. What I'd really like to get for the Master System is R-Type. That's a game I would love to have. You guys know I like my shmups. But somewhat of an expensive title. I don't know offhand what it's going for now, but the last couple times I've checked, you're looking at like $40, $50. But I just think it would be cool to own. Gaming Beast writes, it was really cool you read through all my comments in one episode. I like to listen to podcasts in bulk, as you know. I'll figure out how to do Alpha Centauri play by email nowadays. It would be great. I'm currently playing the expansion Alien Crossfire. I wish I could send you some hours of my time for you to game. I wish some of those tech advances in AC would work in real life, and we could slow down our time in a room, for example. Yeah. That story of Dr. Feelsgood Man was amazing. I'm sure he used his ice powers to cool the freezer when it broke down, or heal an injured coworker with his healing powers, making the boss happy because he could save some bucks. That little story made my day. We should meet up somewhere in the U.S. Right now it's a pipe dream for me, but I'm not giving up on it. It's just a question of time. It will be awesome to check out an arcade and play the 2 to 4 player beat-em-ups, play some D&D, or some board games. Either way, just hanging out might be cool too. Things change with time. Story of the Beast. I was in the, and you know what? I'm sorry if I'm going to pronounce this wrong. You know what's funny? Taking a quick break from this comment. I read this when you originally posted it, and I planned to dump this phrase into Google Translate to see exactly how it's pronounced. Dutch's Museum? I don't know. You'll have to correct me. I'm sorry, dude. I was in the Dutch's Museum in Munich again. We went there on class trips when I was a kid on many occasions. It's a science technology museum, and it's pretty cool. They also had an area for computers, and I saw those massive calculating machines from the 60s. That was cool, and they had a section with old computers and consoles from the early days of gaming, like Atari and C64 to SNES and Genesis, and some choice games. It was cool to see them, but it also made me feel old. I remember most of those consoles and computers when they were new. Now they're part of history. I'll post the pictures sometime in the future, maybe on a Beastcast. Anyway, keep on trucking, broski. Alright, Drobka, let's take this email, or this comment from the bottom up. don't feel bad about seeing things that were new and them being a part of history. You know why? Because we are now a part of history as well. I don't think... I think we are really lucky to have seen a lot of that stuff when it came out. We're lucky to have been around before this hyper frenzy of technology, as marvelous as it is. As much as I'm loving where we're at in terms of technology, I think we're lucky to have been around before it, so we can really appreciate it as much as possible. At least that's the way I like to look at things. You know. I remember when the only internet everyone had was dial-up internet, and we didn't have it at our house, so I could only go to my friend's house and use it. You know, things like that. So now, any computer, it's just a given that it should be able to connect to a network and surf the internet. Never mind a high-speed internet. It's pretty sweet. Pretty far from the days of Super Nintendo and Nintendo, or even earlier, my dad's old IBM 386 machine. As far as meeting up is concerned, this has become a common theme that's been coming up the last several podcasts. I definitely agree we should meet up. My next mission is to go hang out with Sendu, and then I'd like to see if we could do some sort of like summit, you know, like the next round summit. Where we get together and play games. I think that would be absolutely feasible and amazing. I think that's something we should look into one day. And then you talked about Dr. Feels Good Man. Yeah, my character from City of Heroes. Those were good because Dr. Feels Good Man was just about screwing around. And whenever he went adventuring, it was always your character that called the shots and told where to go. So I'm sure he got some dead-end job in the storyline. Not even like a good job. Some menial job that a lot of kids have outside of school so that he can just like hang out and have fun. And as far as Alpha Centauri is concerned, earlier today, we talked and we set up the play by email game, so that's a thing. Alpha Centauri is a cool game, so I'm looking forward to the chance to get to play it. Not only that, but I have it on GOG, so I'll be able to put Alpha Centauri on all my different computers, and then I will be set up to use any one of those computers, my laptops, you know, my main rig, whatever, to play my turnout, making it easier to keep up with. Civ 2 requires the CD, at least unless I figure out a way to patch it. And I broke my install, so I don't know. I'm still working on that. Thanks for writing in, man, and I appreciate all the comments. Excuse me. All right. And what's on my shelf? He writes, Audacity always pisses me off. It's like the devs can't go the extra step to make it usable. Wait, I think I read that wrong. It's like the devs can't go the extra step and make it... Yeah, I read it right. They should blatantly rip off Vegas and how it handles tracks. It's so frustrating to use Audacity. I want to handle the blocks of audio, grabbing and sliding them to mix, and have simple split and marker tools. It has stayed so dumb since its initial release. I hear you talk about being a PC guy and frustrated with the lack of discounts on game downloads several years old. I think you talked about ill downloads of PC games before. I think you were anti mainly because it would set you down a path of not caring about those games or setting up an example for your kid. But your frustration is so palpable it makes me upset. I want to say just download them. I know places, but you won't go there. It's so frustrating since I get a load of my games for a few bucks by garage sailing. It's a time investment. It would go faster with a car, but maybe you wouldn't get the same deals. Myst sounds like a real drain. Those adventure games that present incoherent clues break the illusion for me. Why write down some randomly scrawled glyphs on a staircase when there are which are then entered into a panel near the end of the game? Because it's a game. You note odd things like that. I'm not present in that world. I'm looking at this piece of Tetris saran wrap stretched over a pretty picture, match the funny pieces. Yeah, I get you on that one. Regarding time in adulthood, technology doesn't absolve the heft of handling your life and possibly the life of others. Sure, I think faster transmission of data leads to increasingly faster anticipated response times, but I think the main threat of peacefulness to an adult is the expectancy to provide for yourself and others. If you're not doing that, you feel like you're not doing your part. The challenge of finding a way to convince yourself that you're doing others a solid when you chill. Your acquaintance might still be right. Those long stretches of chill time are shrinking. I often dream of the longer days scientists predict and fantasize whether that will slow people down. The result may just be longer work days or more time thinking about how you could do something more productive. I remember those sunny summer days being almost sick with boredom, indebted to life. Say it the way it's supposed to be said. F money. I say it that way as I wrote it out. The comment might have been hidden in some waiting to approve tab. By the way, yeah, I'm just trying not to cuss on the show if I can avoid it. Sorry about that, but I think we all get the picture. Hey, you skipped my TCR 239 comment. Getting my name in podcasts is my drug, man. The needle goes deep. Just kidding. Maybe. I'm dying here. Man, you got some excellent points here, dude. Let's go back to the beginning and talk about Audacity. I'm lucky in that I've been using Audacity from the very beginning. So I compare it, I think of it like this. Audacity is like GIMP, like comparing GIMP to Photoshop. It can do a lot of the same things, but some of those basic features are just buried, right? I can slide the clips left and right. I can mix them and match them and and fade them in and fade them out. Just takes a little bit more doing than it would, if I was using something like Vegas. Oh, but it functions. It's all right. The new version is a little different, which I'm getting used to. I've had it for a few episodes now, so it's not as bad as it used to be. But it's free, and I've had new systems a couple of times now, and the fact that Audacity is readily available is something that has really helped keep TCR around. It's one of the few things that I was doing at the very, very beginning in 2009 when I started that I'm still doing now, is recording in Audacity. I've always recorded in Audacity. Okay, the second paragraph, you talked about downloading PC games. I assume you're talking about pirating PC games. I just, I don't know, man. I've got such a huge backlog on Steam, and I've got all these physical games. It just seems like there's not much of a reason to pirate for me anymore. Because when games have a reason for me to not pay for them, then I just, get something else these days. I think the only exception I can think of to that rule is there is a game, I wish I could remember what game it was, that came out for the Mac, and it used Denuvo, the DRM program, and the company that made the game shut down, or the company that was operating the DRM shut down, so the Mac users can no longer play it anymore. Even if you even if you don't want to connect to the internet, Denuvo required constant internet connection. So the master servers it connected to are now gone, and thus the game is unplayable, even to play offline alone for yourself. And the people who paid for that game, if they want to keep playing it, their only recourse is to pirate the game. And I think there are some situations like that where the ethical line gets blurred, but by and large, it's just not something I need to do anymore. I really felt like I didn't have it. There was a point in my life where I felt like I didn't have any more options. But thankfully that time has come and gone. So I don't judge pirates. If someone says, yeah, man, I pirated that game, I'm out there doing what I have to do. I try not to be judgmental, but being piracy free, I think, is something that I think it's something worth making moves toward. Even if you have pirated some stuff in the past, or you have some pirated music or whatever, doing it less, I think, now. is a good thing. I mean, when I started making videos on the internet, most of the stuff I made was about freeware. I didn't have to pirate anything. I just went and downloaded what was, legal and free to download. That way I could tell everybody else to download it too. And I could do stuff, that allowed me to make videos when I didn't really have any money, as regularly as I wanted to make them. So that's an example of a solution you can use. That's something else to do. I don't know. I don't feel the need to virtue signal about piracy, because I think it's a very multi-layered issue. I think copyright holders make it sound worse than it is. On the other hand, it's not good to just rip everything off either. So I don't know. I think it's a complicated issue. As for your comment from TCR 239, which, by the way, that episode, I mean, I don't think it, I wouldn't say it did better than any other episode, but that was a pretty well-received TCR. I think it's the most well-received a TCR has been in a long time. So don't worry. I'm going to go back and make sure it gets read. I'm looking at that. I'm looking at 239 right now. You know what's weird? Your comment is not appearing here. What gives? It says 16 comments. What if I do newest first? Light Studios. Patrick Bro 3 writes, "Can you subscribe to my YouTube channel?" There we go. I found it. Brother. Oh boy, that's a big one. Yeah, I could see why you would be upset that I skipped it. Let's see what we got. You know what? I think I even read this just to myself privately. Important note, he writes, legit Windows 10 Pro keys cost less than $5 on eBay. When you buy a key from some seller in the UK and you receive an email with the key, Microsoft has the full Windows 10 downloadable for free. Search download Windows 10. You can burn it to a CD or use a thumb drive if your computer can boot from USB. I highly recommend Windows 10. Actually, both Windows 7 and 10 have been the most stable OSs I've ever run. I've had no crashes except when I installed faulty RAM. I do not recommend getting Tomb Raider for Saturn. That version is very problematic with textures and lighting, and it makes some switches and entrances and tunnels and alcoves and caves difficult to see. You'll be wandering for hours. I think I remember the PS1 version running smoother as well. It sounds like your desire to purchase it is based on your collector brain telling you that you need every incarnation. If that's the case, have you tried Tomb Raider Anniversary on the Wii? I'd like to get Blast Chamber as well. I've been looking for the PS1 version for a while. I remember having a lot of fun playing the demo with my brother. In the Hunt is more than a solid shooter. The Saturn version has slowed down. I don't think many people know that the PS1 version got re-released in a jewel case form. That variant is not any easier to find. I have the feeling we did read this. That's all right. RoboPit was one of those games I bought brand new at EB Games. I think it was budget priced. It had a cool concept and the robots were cartoony and had a wild assortment of attachments. I remember being underwhelmed, and it's most likely because my brother never picked up a controller to play. Years later I discovered there was a RoboPit 2. I guess that's the same game with more options and better arenas. Weren't all the arenas simply flat grids in RoboPit? Swingle's comment and your response brought up a good point that reminded me about something I was pondering lately and just need an excuse to discuss it. I thought about making a short video about it. Maybe I will at some point. Just thinking about the future of physical media and attachment to our subculture and past ones from that factor. When the retro game scene started to become more substantial, the physical connection to the machines, accessories, and games was usually part of the discussion that that many had around their enjoyment of the hobby. Let's see. He also writes, I heard many say in jest that kids are the future of gaming, to be showing off their ROMs or Steam collections. But with the fast advent of the streaming world, where no content is stored in your personal drive and your interaction with games is one streamed video frame at a time, it actually makes sense that future nostalgia nerds would want to come across their media offline. It will be a point of pride that they can access their media offline. As an example, having Afterburner Climax is impossible outside of the arcade machine, or you license the license you download years ago on the 360 or PS3. You can't get it now if you didn't purchase a license years ago. access to that license has been rescinded in the future. I believe there are games like Turtles in Time Remake or PT Demo which don't allow re-downloads. I have to look into hacking my PS3. I hope it's as easy as the Wii. Okay, so I think you're right. If you look at my Steam profile, I have a great big list of games that I have in my Steam collection that you can't buy anymore. So clearly that's a thing. Companies go out of business, servers shut down, the games are no longer available. It happens. It's sad. I've seen it happen on consoles as well. Now, I don't know the console market as well as PC, but just a tiny, teeny little example. Chessmaster. I like chess, right? Ubisoft got the license to Chessmaster. Chessmaster Grandmaster Edition. There used to be for sale on Xbox 360, like in the first couple years of the system, and it is gone now. It's also gone from Steam, and it has been gone since about 2010. So it's never coming back, and that's now. It's not a. What terminology would I use? It's a difficult game to get a hold of. You have to do very specific things to get a hold of it. However, it's not rare and valuable. It's just you have to jump through some pretty specific hoops to get a hold of it. So if that happened to any sort of game that would be, have more mass appeal to it, then you would have a rare and expensive game. But thankfully, nobody else cares about Chessmaster, so it's not that hard. Okay, you also talked about RoboPit. So RoboPit was like this. All of the arenas were flat, but they had like but they had some sort of bridge in the middle that you would jump over. I remember that being a very frequently used arena. I also remember there being some sort of space arena, and I remember there being rocks you could pick up that ultimately didn't really help you. By and large, they were all the same or very similar. I actually have RoboPit 2. I have it disc only. It's a pretty different game. It's more, it's less like a tournament than the first one. Than the first one is. The first one's clearly you go one-on-one with these robots and that's it. RoboPit 2 has got more of a story to it, and the robots look a little bit less cartoon. Well, they still look cartoony, but they look more like a Robotron kind of robot rather than, the goofy robots from the first one. And finally, I got Windows 10 up and running. I didn't know you could get a key for $5. That kind of burns me a little bit. I bought my key for $30, but it's still good to know. I don't know. You never know when I'll need to reinstall all this crap again, or who knows. My downstairs computer is running Windows 7 right now. If it's only $5, anything happens to that Windows key, if it gets deactivated like this computer did, then I'll just replace it with Windows 10, and I won't even mess with it. So that's good to know. Thanks, man. Here's another one from last week's episode. Gaming Beast 82, good old Sean. He writes, I used to play the demo for Blast Chamber all the time. I love the whole walk to the corner and flip the room concept of the game. Yeah, me too. I wish GOG would release the PC version one day. The story from your dad is really touching. My parents never had any interest in playing video games. My mom only played my cousin's Wii Sports, Wii Golf, once. If nothing else, the crappy WiiWare controls brought a bunch of people to play video games who previously never would. I don't know if that's good or bad. Either way, great episode, man. Yeah, man, the Wii was weird like that. It had a bunch of people come to the table who weren't willing to before. But then when I think the Wii was done, those people then left the table. Like, I don't think anybody... I mean, I can't say... I don't know. You never know. But I don't think, for the most part, these people who were older and were playing Wii Sports, I don't think they stayed with video games. I think they played Wii Sports and that was it. But who knows? So with that, ladies and gentlemen, I'm exhausted. I'm absolutely bushwhacked. It's Friday night. I managed to get out and get running today. I ran for 5 days in a row. And then I took one day off. And then the next day, my muscles were feeling better. But I felt like I had to go out and regain the momentum. And that was today. So I went out and did it. and got my running in, and I'm just beat to goodness. This is supposed to be the party day, right? It's Friday night, but I don't think I'm going to be doing much partying. I did manage to get a hold of Grand Theft Auto 5, and it's just taken forever. Grand Theft Auto 5 is 72.6 gigabytes, son. That is huge. Absolutely enormous, and it's just taking forever to download. So definitely not going to be able to play that tonight. So whatever has brought you guys 1 hour and 12 minutes into this enormous podcast, which I apologize. I know these shows have just been getting longer and longer. Thanks for spending time. I appreciate it. You know, there's a lot of ways you can spend your time in the world. So I value the time that you guys spend here hanging out with me. It's been great. I've had a good time as well. So let's do this. Let's all go out to our jobs or wherever it is we got to go for the next week. And let's just really try and make it a good week. Because sometimes that's a tall order. But I'm rooting for you out there. And we'll meet back up on Monday and compare notes. I'll see you guys then. Have a good week.